Best start in over 3 decades. The Bills now 8-2 on the season. As per usual, they didn't make it look easy at times. Welcome to the Buffalo End Zone Podcast, everybody. I'm Kevin Carroll.
And the first time in a long time, we experienced the Josh Allen roller coaster. But in the end, the Bills pull it out in somewhat dominating fashion. So we got a lot to talk about today as far as what went well and what went poorly.
30-20, the final, Andy. It wasn't even really that close at the end of the day, but you did need those what might go down as this team's MO for this year. Halftime adjustments, dominate in the second half. I think if things keep playing out like this, this is just going to be what this team's identity was this year. You hear that a lot. What's the Bills' identity? A team that's good at making halftime adjustments. Defense got off to a great start in this one. Offense took a while to catch up, but then when you needed to slam the door, Andy, on a team that shouldn't be in or isn't even in your category as one of the better teams in the NFL, they were able to do that thanks in part to Josh Allen and that offense. But I think at the end of the day, when you look at this win, it was all about the defense.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And the defense had its struggles at times too. So did the offense. But they come through with 4 turnovers of Joe Flacco, absolutely caused trouble for him all day long. 4 sacks as well, contributors all over the field for the defense. Yeah, they got gashed by Jonathan Taylor for 100 yards in the first half, but they absolutely smothered him in the second half and didn't allow him to get going and made Flacco really one-dimensional. And that was the key to this game. And then, yeah, they get the Taron Johnson pick 6 to start, another pick by Austin Johnson, the defensive lineman, his second in 3 weeks. Remarkably, that led to a field goal. Bills got out to a 10-0 lead, but then all of a sudden, before you know it, they're trailing 13-10, and that's just not exactly what you want to have happen when you're the Buffalo Bills. But like they always do, they're a resilient group. They make adjustments on both sides of the football, and they get the job done and win going away.
I want to stay positive, Andy. I'm a positive guy. I like staying that way. So the 2 negatives, Josh Allen, 2 interceptions. One of them, a really good interception. The other one, a horrible throw by Josh Allen. Jonathan Taylor over 100 yards in the first half of this game. But like you said, Bobby Babich gets these guys going, and then they end up shutting the door to get that 8th win of the season. It's hard not to move on to the Kansas City Chiefs right away because they're undefeated, because they have a horseshoe up their butt. I mean, the Colts might have a horseshoe on their helmet. This Chiefs team this year has a horseshoe up their butt. But there's more time to deal with that later on in the week. We'll talk about this win and the over. I mean, Andy, you got contributions from – you had Gregory Rousseau with that strip sack. You have Damar Hamlin. While the broadcast is talking about him versus Joe Flacco as far as the comeback player of the year went, Damar Hamlin lands on the fumble after Gregory Rousseau gets to them, and Joe Flacco has just one of his worst outings I've ever seen Joe Flacco play. But, I mean, who cares about that? This ends up being just another example of the Bills taking care of business eventually against the team that they should have taken care of business over. And as I said to Stevie Johnson, this was a game that felt like it should have been 28-0 at some point in the first half. Now, Stevie on our post-game show says to me, well, these are NFL players. You can't do that. But then later on, he switched gears, and he is right. You're right, though. I mean, if the offense took advantage of what the defense was giving them, they should have really ran away with this one.
Yeah, at one point they had 3 takeaways and they're tied 10-10, right? Like that should never happen. But Allen in the offense, they move the ball down the field. They don't convert on a 4th down, so they don't get a field goal there. Allen gets picked again. I mean, there were just some missed opportunities, but in the end, Josh did what he had to do. He kind of gritted this game out the way he does sometimes, and yeah, he had some uncharacteristic turnovers for what he's been doing this season, but this was pretty typical of what we've seen from Josh Allen throughout the course of his career. offensively, I mean, they're shorthanded a little bit. So you look at being down Amari Cooper, you're being down Keon Coleman, right? And other guys have to step up. We finally saw something from Curtis Samuel. We saw Mack Hollins make some big plays. We saw Dawson Knox make a fantastic catch on a great pass from Josh Allen down the field. You saw a bunch of different guys getting involved in this game. Running game was going at times. Cook did a nice job. Shakir breaks the back towards the end of the game on that screen pass that he takes a long distance and really puts this game away. So this is what we've been talking about with this Bills team. No matter who's in the lineup, who's not, what happens in the early stages of a game, they typically find ways to figure this thing out. I mean, 5 straight wins, they're not over juggernauts, but they're doing what they have to do, and it's usually fairly convincing.
Shout out to Mack Hollins, Andy. I was critical of them going to him at times when I felt you should be going to someone else earlier in the season. But the last couple of weeks, Mack Hollins has delivered when he needed to deliver. In that play towards the end of the half where he was able to slide and catch the ball with the wherewithal to get up and get out of bounds to stop the clock, was just, it's just a veteran savvy move to know, hey, no one touched me. I'm getting out of bounds.
Yeah, I mean, Mack Hollins has been a serviceable player for this team this season. I think when they went to maybe upgrade from Trent Sherfield, because he didn't have a great season last year, this is a guy who contributes on special teams, who's a smart, heady player. He's kind of in that leadership role too. He's been a captain everywhere he's been. He's been a nice fit. Is he a game-breaking player? No, but he does make plays when needed, and he does enough sometimes. And that play at the end of the first half, they stole 3 points by Allen scrambling out and then doing what Josh does, firing it 44 yards down the field to Mack Hollins. And like you said, the wherewithal, the smarts, the football intelligence to get up and quickly get out of bounds with, I think, 10 seconds left, gave him one more shot to maybe go to the end zone. Josh smartly throws it away. Tyler Bass kicks the field goal with 2 seconds left, walk off into halftime, and you're in much better shape than you were previously when things seemed like they might have been unraveling a bit for the Bills. They got it figured out.
Yeah, I was impressed, albeit this is the Colts. I think up against the Chiefs coming up their next game, it will be a different story with this group of pass catches that were out there. I mean, keep in mind, too, Dalton Kincaid, knee injury during the game, didn't really play much in the second half. I think he tried to give it a go at one point and then didn't see anything else. But you got contributions from Dawson Knox. Curtis Samuel. Early to me, it seemed like they found a better role for him, but then resorted back to those wide receiver screens and stuff like that. Ultimately, he ended up with 4 catches, Andy, but for just 35 yards.
Yeah, but honestly, that was an improvement, right? You saw him pick up first downs. I think having him just run some regular routes, don't always have him in that gadget mode, always in the screens, always in the jet sweep type of things. Use him. And they had really no choice because they needed him to play outside receiver. So, when you're down to Shavers and, Virgil, and you bring up Samuel and you bring up Mack Hollins, and everybody's kind of elevated up a level. This is what we talked about when they traded for Amari Cooper. Guys were pushed back to roles maybe they're more suited for. I don't know what it was with Curtis Samuel. It wasn't like this was a huge game, but just overall, I think a better way of utilizing him. One thing I want to bring up, Kevin, that I think a lot of people were upset about was not running James Cook as much as they should have, especially when Josh was having a little bit of struggles. In the end of the game, he still comes away with 19 carries, 80 yards, 4.2 yards per carry. And the Bills actually outrushed the Colts in this game, which is amazing considering Jonathan Taylor had 100 yards with half a quarter left in the first half. So I think they did okay running the football. It doesn't always happen in the exact ways people want them to, but they did an okay job. I would have liked to maybe seen some more running there in the first half, but that's the way it goes. You don't expect Allen to throw 2 picks, and that's kind of the thing you have to live with.
I'm with you on that. Like when we talked on Wednesday leading up to the game, and I was looking at, where the Colts stood as far as rush defense went, I thought that this would be a good opportunity to get James Cook and Ray Davis and Ty Johnson more involved in this game plan. But it was good to see, Andy, in the second half when you get James Cook ripping off 9 yards on first down, ripping off 11 yards on first down. I think one of the bugaboos that some fans had with the Bills coming out and getting this interception or the fumble, and then Josh Allen, like, instead of settling things down and giving the ball to Cook or Ray Davis on that first play of that next drive, Josh, I believe it was when he threw that quick out that
to Samuel.
To Samuel, that got picked off. I think that I was on par or in agreement with a lot of what I saw on social media was, why do that there? Why not get this drive settled coming off that turnover? Or for me, go for like a deep shot and try and just set the tone that way. But a quick out, I just didn't like it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into an argument with you, but I mean, I don't know what that, like, settling it down from what? They've got the ball. They should be on the attack, right? Like, they don't need to settle down. They just need to play their game. Josh made a poor throw, or the player made a nice play. I think Samuel wasn't necessarily in great position there. I mean, fans clamor all the time for, oh, every time they run the ball on first down, they're so predictable. Let's go play action. Let's throw the ball on first down. Let's break tendency that we've done this season, because in the past, the Bills were one of the best neutral situation passing teams in the NFL, which typically was a sign of offensive success. This season, they've reverted much more to running the ball on first down. So a lot of fans have been out there saying, all right, why don't you pass the ball sometimes on first downs? And unfortunately, when you do that, that happens sometimes. You throw a pick. So I don't know. You can't have it both ways, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
I just know I said out loud to myself watching the game that after the interception, I'm like, I would have liked to run there. Like, if I was calling the game, and again, I'm not a professional offensive coordinator, Andy.
You're not?
I try to be on TV after the game, but I don't know. I just thought that this was a game where I thought they should be running the ball more on first down. I mean, Josh Allen at that point was still not playing his best football. So,
yeah, to me, though, that's a case where if he completes that pass and it's a 7-yard out or it's incomplete, nobody thinks anything of it. Because it got picked, you're going to be like, you should have ran the ball there. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to pick hairs too much there, split hairs, I guess. But I see what you're saying, but I think they did an okay job with it. I would have liked to seen a little more run heavy in the first half.
Yeah, okay. So we're in agreement, technically speaking.
We get around to it eventually.
Did you think you would have saw more Ty Johnson? I think he only was involved in like 3 plays in this one.
I mean, and Ray Davis too.
Oh, Ray Davis. I'm sorry. I meant Ray Davis.
Yeah, Ray Davis only had 3 carries for 6 yards. I don't know what happened there, why that kind of went the way it did. Maybe they just thought Cook was rolling, especially there in the second half, and wanted to stick with the hot hand, or thought that maybe Davis was banged up or something. I'm not sure exactly what happened there, but not a big game from Ray Davis, and that's a little bit puzzling because he's been pretty good.
You tell me if I'm reading too much into this or overthinking this. Still issues with false starts on the offensive line.
Yeah.
Deion Dawkins gets dinged up for a couple. I think
Spencer Brown got one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Torrance, I think, got one maybe.
I think they said on the broadcast, Dawkins, the 10th call on Dawkins this season. I mean, these things against better teams are drive killers, Andy. And I believe they were drive killers in this one as well. And, we go out, we talk to everyone every week about the importance of pre-snap penalties and blah, blah, blah. But it seems like it's still there too much, in that it might end up just costing them something big down the line.
Yeah, I mean, they've got to get that straightened out. I mean, Sean McDermott says that those pre-snap kind of penalties, those mental mistakes, are non-negotiables, but they still happen, right? I mean, these guys are human. You'd like to see that cleaned up a little bit more. A couple a game, yeah, you get it, but maybe probably too many for these guys, especially when you're talking about Dawkins, and Spencer Brown gets nipped quite often for a variety of issues, including unsportsmanlikes and personal fouls and things like that sometimes are warranted, sometimes not. I don't think the one today was necessarily warranted.
How big of a deal is it that this is their best start since 1993? And I'm asking you because you would have been a kid then. I mean, that's amazing to me. When I heard, well, first of all, when I heard that they hadn't won in Indianapolis since Doug Flutie beat Peyton Manning in 1998, that wowed me. But I do remember some ugly Bills games in Indianapolis throughout the early 2000s before Sean McDermott got there. And even after Sean McDermott got there, there was a pretty ugly one there. But so best start since 1993, first win at Indianapolis since the 90s as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the nature of it. They used to be in the same division, so they played each other home and home every year back in the day. They both were in the AFC East, and it's been a while since that was the case. So for them to come here every, 8 years or whatever it is, I mean, it is what it is. I covered a 2012 game when Fitz was the quarterback still, and I think T.Y. Hilton returned a punt for a touchdown before T.Y. Hilton was even a household name. Mm-hmm. So that goes back to a typical drought kind of game for the Buffalo Bills. Being 8-2, great, right? Especially when many people thought this was a year the Bills might take a step back. This was a year many people thought the Dolphins or the Jets were going to compete for this division and possibly overtake the Bills. Well, this is probably the least competitive the division has been in several years since the Bills kind of took that step forward and became the dominant team in the division. And now look, getting to 8-2 is big because next week you've got the 9-0 Kansas City Chiefs coming to town, and you beat them and you get a chance to get within one game of the number one seed in the AFC and the bye. And that's huge. Baltimore's still chasing after you. Pittsburgh, different teams are still trying to chase after you, and you got a lead on them. So to get to 8-2 is critical. And if they can finish, 14-3 or 13-4, somewhere in there, and possibly get that top seed in the AFC, that's absolutely massive because you're guaranteed to be at home and you avoid having to play in the wild card round, which is big. And we've seen that from the Chiefs. Of course, the Chiefs have done it in a couple of different ways, usually by being at home, but they've also done it by not being the one seed as well. But it's much easier to win 2 games to get to the Super Bowl than it is 3 and possibly have to go on the road too.
Yeah, how big is this game coming up on Sunday, Andy? I mean,
it's really big, Kevin, but like you brought up the horseshoe up the butt. Let's get into that because let's talk about the way they won this last game.
So I'm getting ready to do the post-game show, and it looks like the Broncos setting up to win it on a field goal, and the Chiefs block the field goal and win the game. And incredible. It's just week after week, and I know I compared them to the undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers from a few years ago. I think the COVID year ended up coming into Buffalo, and the Bills ended up beating them undefeated no more. We'll see about that moving forward. But again, week after week, you look at this Kansas City Chiefs team that the Bills are trying to track down but can't because they keep squeaking by or winning games that look like they're going to lose the entire game. But then when the clock hits zeros, Andy, they're the ones up on top. And again, here you are at 9-0 on the season, coming here to Buffalo, but the Bills still have a chance. And the Bills, at least during the regular season, Andy, we've seen match up pretty well with the Chiefs, at least at this point. I'm dying to find out what the wide receiver situation is going to look like going into this one, because it just doesn't seem realistic that with what they put out against the Colts would work against the Chiefs.
What do you think is more fun, like more of a storyline? So can the Bills knock off the undefeated Chiefs and to pull within a game of the AFC lead, or is it more fun to have them having had lost and the Bills can overtake them in this game? I think it can go either way. Like for fans, I mean, for the Bills, they'd be like, yeah, I'd love to have them not undefeated because that means we can take over first place in the AFC East or in the AFC overall, excuse me. But there's just something to, your arch rival, the team that you compete with every year in the playoffs and in the regular season. And you said it, they match up okay with the Chiefs, right? Like, these games have not typically been blowouts recently. The Bills have beaten them in the regular season, I think, 3 straight times. Then the playoffs, we all know about 13 seconds. We all know about what happened last season. That was a close game too. So it's not like the Chiefs are head and shoulders above the Bills. They're just incredible at finding the ways to win. Their defense is really good, keeps them in all the games. And then even if Mahomes is not having his best day, he and Reed and Kelsey somehow find a way to make the big play when it matters. Or in this case, somebody blocks a field goal incredibly. But for whatever reason, they have that. We turn it on when we need to, and we figure out a way to win. It's really incredible, and you just have to hand it to them for that. They're amazing at it, and it's getting to be. We talked about this a little bit, Kevin, how the Patriots were a more annoying dynasty to me than the Chiefs, but the Chiefs are starting to get up there because the way they're like before it was fun and it was pretty and Mahomes is throwing the ball over the field and Kelsey and Tyreek Hill and they're inventive offensively and having fun. They're just grinding games out now and still winning. And that is frustrating if you're a non-Kansas City Chiefs fan.
Yeah, I mean, I look at I don't have the Chiefs' schedule in front of me, but I dare say that the Bills' defense is going to be one of the better defenses Patrick Mahomes and company are going to have to deal with up to this point. Back to your original question about, them knocking off the undefeated team or, the other, I would say knocking off the undefeated team because you could do something to the Chiefs that could derail them for a little bit. You know what I mean? Like you didn't need the Broncos to get that field goal. Let them come into our house out here in Western New York. We'll take care of them. We'll knock them off the undefeated ranks and then let the chips fall where they may the rest of the day or the rest of the season. I think the Chiefs still have a game with the Chargers, who I just feel the Chargers can always get to the Chiefs every now and then.
I'll give you the schedule here. After the Bills, they play the Panthers, win. Raiders. I mean, sometimes the Raiders play them tough, but probably a win. Then it's the Chargers. Then it's the Browns at the Browns. Ugh. Then hosting the Texans.
Okay, there's a game up in the air.
At the Steelers.
There's a game up in the air.
And at the Broncos to close out the season.
Broncos home. I mean, it's possible. So it starts at Highmark Stadium this coming Sunday with the Bills. Just get off to a fast start. Get out there on top of them. I'm thinking back of the game in Kansas City a few years ago where the Bills just lit them up early and often. And, it wasn't really a game in the second half. There was no sweating it out.
I think this is going to really be important this week, and we'll talk about this all throughout the week, but it's just fun to discuss this. What's going to happen with Keon Coleman and Amari Cooper? Because that totally changes what the Bills can possibly be offensively. Like you saw Allen kind of gut this one out, and he put up some numbers, but it wasn't his best day, and they got contributions from a lot of different guys, but the Chiefs' defense is really, really good.
Let me ask you a question. And we know how the Bills operate, Andy.
Yes.
You really kind of have to be 100% to go. If Amari Cooper and Keon Coleman are on the fence, you have the bye week coming up. Is it worth maybe even just one of them playing in the game against the Chiefs if they're both at like 80% ready to go?
Right. So it boils down to, all right, do we have a realistic shot at the 1 seed? And how important is that to us? I don't know. You're right. The Bills tend to play injuries pretty safe on the more conservative side. They've got a bye week coming up. These guys could have a couple of weeks to heal. They're in good shape going into San Francisco in the final month or so of the season. Same time, do we want to put them out there, try to knock the Chiefs off, pull within a game in the AFC, and pull within a game of the 1 seed, but then have one of those guys get hurt worse or re-injure it. I guess it depends on what the injuries actually are.
Right.
We don't really know, right? Is it a bruise for Keon Coleman, a contusion? We thought that at one point, but then during Friday's Fast Friday walkthrough practice, or it's not really a walkthrough, but it's just a lighter practice, he had a brace on his wrist and hand. And Cooper, we saw doing interviews with him, I think it was on Thursday, he took off his glove and it looked like he had a cast on or a heck of a tape job. So what's up with that, right? So I guess kind of just depends on whether they can re-injure it further and then put themselves in jeopardy of missing the playoffs altogether because of that. If that's the case, you'd probably lean conservative and you don't play them. But if it's just pain tolerance or whatever, they think they can go, maybe you give it a shot then if you don't think that a hard hit's going to re-injure it or keep them out for the rest of the year.
And now you got Dalton Kincaid with a knee injury.
All right.
I mean, that just kind of stinks going into this game. Like, you looked at how this game could play out. You know, you had Khalil Shakir good to go. You'll lean on him. Dalton Kincaid, Mac Jones a little more from Samuel. And next thing you know, it's Dawson Knox. Has to be relied on more, which, Andy, between you and I'm fine with. I'm still a big Dawson Knox guy. You know?
Right. He's not quite as athletic. He's not quite a great route runner as Kincaid is, but he's been doing this for a long time and has been a fairly reliable part of this offense for a long time. Has he put up monster numbers as a tight end? No, but he's a decent player and can be relied upon in this situation. So I'm not completely worried about that. You love to have Kincaid out there. He did try to go back into the game, but then came out. We saw him walk into the locker room after the game was over, had a black brace around his knee, but didn't look like he was limping too much. So maybe that was precautionary. They just wanted to get through the game and see how it was. But yeah, I mean, you love to have him out there because he's a weapon, but if Knox has to play and Quinton Morris has to play a little more, so be it. The Bills have beaten the Chiefs with Dawson Knox playing and not having Kincaid on the team at all.
Right, absolutely. So, I mean, we'll see. You know, I have no way to segue to this, so I'm just going to change gears and go Von Miller at you, because Von Miller, to me, was noticeable in this game. And after last season, he had a decent start, dealt with the 4-game suspension, was wondering myself how he was going to be coming off the suspension, but he's noticeable this year at affecting plays. And I think that, you know, going into this stretch of the season, just getting Von Miller to keep ramping up should pay big dividends, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, this is one where you're going to have to dive into the pressure rate and that sort of thing, because he's not on the stat sheet at all. Didn't have a tackle listed here that I can see on the NFL's website. So, but he was noticeable in that he did get a couple of pressures that you saw and did get involved in some of those plays. I think on one of those run stops on a 3rd or 4th down, he was involved in that as well. So, I mean, is he, you know, a dominant player at this point? No, but he's fine and he's doing an okay job. And I think there might come a point where you see him come up with a big sack again and that sort of thing, and be able to, you know, hang his hat on that, because he's not the player he was 4 or 5 years ago or 8 years ago, even, because this guy's old at this point. He's damn near as old as me.
Hey, that's fine. I'm way older than all of you.
But you know, he's going to be an important piece as a situational pass rusher. They've got to be able to count on him.
Any big questions coming out of this game that you have, as far as, I mean, I would think the wide receiver thing is the big question mark moving forward.
I'd say
what happens with Matt Milano moving forward. And that's it. But as far as this defense goes, as long as it stays healthy, I'm really confident that this defense can keep the Bills in any game now.
Yeah,
except for the Ravens.
Right. Well, that's what I wanted to say was, if anything you're worried about, it's the run defense. But then they completely flipped the script in the second half and shut it down, right?
Right.
So I don't know. Like, are they a juggernaut? No, but they're a team defensively that is constantly in the right place. And yeah, they're going to probably get gashed in the run game against a bunch of different teams. It's just, can they overcome that? I worry about a matchup with a team like Detroit that has a physical, big offensive line, likes to run the ball, but also has a real accurate quarterback and really good skill players too on the outside. That's a game that you worry about because, all right, you're getting gashed in the run game. You're trying to make adjustments to fix that, but then you're getting beat by Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jared Goff and Sam Laporta. I mean, that's a thing you worry about a little bit. But overall, I think for the most part, the defense is always sound and always in good spots. Even through the course of a game, they make adjustments. And offensively, it's the wide receivers. Can they get healthy and get on the same page there?
Stevie Johnson points out during the post-game show that the improvements in the second half. Wanted to ask, if you were in the locker room, do they have like a cooler full of that Space Jam juice that Bugs Bunny and those guys took
I heard him say that, yeah.
To turn things around in the second half and get out there and get at it? Because it does seem like no matter what scenario the Bills are in, Ravens game aside, either if whatever, they always seem to come out to start the second half a lot better than they do the start of the game.
Yeah, I mean, even in that Ravens game, if you remember, before that Josh Allen big hit and fumble and the Ravens recovered, I mean, they were looking like they were going to go down and score again. And so then you're right in the game with the Ravens, and that kind of just got away from them from there. Every other game this season, even in that loss to Houston, they're right there, right? It's just that crazy ending. They probably should have been to overtime, right? And you take your chances there. So, it's just one of those teams that somehow, some way makes those adjustments in the second half of games and seems to figure something out.
All right, you and I have talked about this offline, and I keep forgetting to do this during the post-game podcast. So I can't remember what we were calling it, but player of the game, say, for the Bills in this one. Who's up, who was down for the Bills? I got to give it to Taron Johnson. He almost had 2 interceptions in this one.
Yep.
Set the tone early in this game and was still a menace throughout the entire game. So as far as a guy on either offense or defense, I go Taron Johnson.
Yeah, Taron Johnson is not only one of the best nickel cornerbacks in the league, he's just one of the best players in the league. That guy, at his size, is able to do incredible things. He's basically playing linebacker, but he's covering tight ends and slot receivers. I mean, it's just incredible what he's able to do. I mean, if he's not an all-pro, I don't know who is. So Taron Johnson, for sure, gets my game ball on defense. And on offense, how about Mack Hollins, man? Like, just making plays, being heady. He gets some flack, and I think people loved him at first with the bare feet and all the weird things and not eating with utensils. But then it kind of got old when he wasn't necessarily producing that much. And then he's kind of rebounded nicely. So offensively, let's give it to Mack Hollins. James Cook, another good game too.
Mack Hollins, another new tidbit they said during the broadcast that I didn't know about. Doesn't take elevators unless he needs to. Prefers to walk because he doesn't need help rising to another level.
He's funny, man. The whole the shoes are a tool. Like you wouldn't, if you're a farmer, you don't, carry around a shovel wherever you are. I don't know. Just he's a different cat. I love that. Like I got to interview him right in the beginning of OTAs because that was fun and got to introduce him to Bills Mafia. Toot my own horn a little bit, and he's just a fun guy. He's his own character, and is he a game-breaking player? No, but I think he's pretty good in the NFL to be his age and doing what he's doing and be a nice contributor on special teams and now on offense for the Bills.
Yeah, I have it with Mack Hollins and Dawson Knox kind of even on this one for how they helped in the flow of this game. But like I said earlier in the podcast, Mack Hollins with the wherewithal to slide to catch a ball, get up and run out of bounds, seals the deal for him.
Yeah, and for me, if there was like a least valuable player, it's hard to even give one in this game because so many contributors. Like when Allen's throwing 2 interceptions, you're like, man, that was a struggle bus. but he also ends up with 280 yards and runs in for a touchdown and engineers them putting the game away and runs for 50 yards too. So I don't have an LVP in this one. So we're going game balls only.
Okay. I would, if you force me to it, I was going to lean towards Deion Dawkins for his 2 false starts.
There you go.
I mean, that's a bit of a stretch. And then before we head out, because Sean McDermott pointed this out to start his post-game press conference, the Tyler Bass situation, kicking the game winner, the confidence is there, Andy. You can kind of tell watching this game with the field goal at the end of the half that was needed and just contributions throughout. I mean, the kicking game in general, Sam Martin as well.
Yeah. I mean, for Bass to hit that 61-yarder, set a team record, win it at the buzzer, basically, was huge. And then to continue that and to hit all his kicks and stay clean, and McDermott to continue to pour confidence in him, it's crucial because you're going to need this guy. I don't think they're going anywhere else at this point. They're not going to sign anybody short of him missing 10 kicks in a row. So you're dealing with Tyler Bass, and for him to continue to perform and get his head right or whatever it was, he's got it straightened out, it looks like. So that breeds a whole lot of confidence in what he's able to do. And Sam Martin has quietly been really good this year. And you saw that punt down to the 4-yard line of Indianapolis at one point. I mean, that's a weapon too. You don't like to see your punter out there all that often, but you got to go to him. You hope he can do the right things and either bomb it long or, lock a team down deep inside their own territory.
Good for Bass. 61-yard winner outside. Get to go in a dome, a nice controlled atmosphere. Although I think during the podcast I heard Sal Capaccio on the radio say that there was an open window at one of the ends of the stadium that I don't know if that causes anything inside the arena, but whatever.
There was, they have Lucas Oil Stadium's really cool. They have a big glass window that's basically halfway up the stadium, and they can open it on one end. So fresh air is coming in. It makes you feel like you're outdoors a little more, a lot of natural light. So for them to open that up is cool. There was really no wind to speak of, though, down on the field. Didn't see the flags blowing or anything like that.
All right, so now here we go. Bills, Chiefs coming up. Andy and I get you ready for it coming up on Wednesday as we keep an eye on all things Buffalo Bills. The big game against the mighty 9-0 Kansas City Chiefs. For Andy Young, I'm Kevin Carroll. As always, thanks for joining us, everyone.